Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special Quincy Access television production today. We are here with EmilyLebo, who is a writing candidate for school committee on November 3rd of this year. Emily, welcome to the show, and we want to let people know who you are and why you are in this race at this time.
I want to thank you, Paul, for inviting me to come on the show. I really appreciate it. It's great to be here with you today and have this discussion.
Well, it's great to have you here. You've lived in Quincy for a long time. Can you tell us something about your family?
Yep, my husband and I bought our first house in the Wollaston section of Quincy about 40 years ago. Before that, I had lived in an apartment in Quincy with my mother for a few years. And we've raised our three boys in Quincy, in the Wollaston section. I have three sons. I have all of whom have married, and two of whom have moved back to Quincy in their second homes, and I have children in the school system. And my youngest son Matthew is actually looking for a house now in Quincy too. So I think they'll all be here shortly.
That's great. I know that I'm on the school committee currently, and I had the pleasure of working with you for 2 years, and you were a big help to me. I respected and admired your knowledge, your maturity, your experience that you brought to the committee. Can you tell us something about your professional development before you were on the committee?
Sure. I actually am a registered nurse, and I worked in nursing for most of my career. When my youngest son was going to kindergarten, there was a temporary job opening at Quincy High School to teach in the vocational program, the nursing assistant program. And so I taught as a sub for 1 year and was hired the next year, and I spent about 12 years in the classroom in Quincy, 12 or 13 years in the classroom, and working as a teacher and a department head in the Center for Technical Education. After that, all that time I was also working part-time as a nurse, but after that I was hired as the Director of Career and Technical Education for the district in Quincy, and I oversaw some of the programs at the middle schools and programs at North Quincy High School and at Quincy High School. And I also helped with the planning and the preparation for the new Quincy High School, the programs there, and the build-out of some of the technical programs at North Quincy High School.
I'd like to get more in-depth a little bit later on that, but so you spent 21 years in the Quincy Public Schools as an educator.
Correct.
And that experience that you brought to the school committee was invaluable.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that. I think it's true. Even my years in Boston, the next 8 years I was in Boston working as the district-wide Director of Career and Technical Education, overseeing programs at 9 to 11 schools every single year. I also did a lot of work with special needs students with disabilities, actually, and their transition plans as they were exiting high school. So I ran that program.
Well, I can relate to some of what you say because I spent 34 years in the Quincy Public Schools as a teacher, and I know that the experience that I got in the Quincy Public Schools was invaluable to me when I was elected to the school committee 4 years ago. Some of your career highlights are incredibly impressive. Just starting with the Quincy High School evening program. Could you explain what you did and why you did it?
I can. We were at a point in the school system where we were having some problems with dropouts. Kids were not completing their local requirements, even though they had passed MCAS, for a variety of reasons. Most of them were sort of disengaged kids who weren't really, they weren't grabbing onto anything that the district had to offer. And the district has to offer tons of stuff. But for some kids, it just isn't enough. So what happened was the superintendent said we really need to do something about this. And at the time I was on the Workforce Investment Board. I was the district's representation, and they had some grant money. So we worked with the Workforce Investment Board on their grant money to help students at risk. We wrote the grant, and we got the grant, and we started to implement an alternative program for kids who just needed to either complete their local requirements or another alternative setting to be successful in high school. And it has been one of the most successful things that has happened in Quincy. Everybody knows a student or two who just needs a little more opportunity to complete their requirements. These were kids who could do the work, but just needed another option, a different option. Some of it now is electronic, but there are classrooms and there's guidance coursework, and there are guidance activities for all of these kids. So we've just about eliminated the dropout rate in Quincy Public Schools because of this. The program has been in place self-funding by the way, with no district support. It's funded through the grant from the Workforce Investment Board, has been in place for several years, still runs beautifully, and kids are still graduating from it every single year.
So it's still in place now?
Still in
Something that you
place.
started many years ago?
Many years ago, probably 12 years ago or so. Still in place and still being successful and still not costing the district any kind of significant money.
People remember you as a teacher in the nursing area at the VOTEC, when it was called the VOTEC, in my going door to door for this particular campaign. And they remember you very fondly. And they were very impressed with what you did up at Quincy High School. There were other things that you did also. When you were on the school committee, you helped to bring back the media specialists?
I did. That was something that we heard from parents. It was a huge uprising from the parents that they wanted the media specialists back. And the superintendent, to his credit, said he didn't want to bring them back as they were, but he wanted to know if they were valuable. He wanted to make sure that they were media teachers, educators also. So we went out. I got a couple of districts to agree to have us come out and look at their programs. And the superintendent came with us, a couple of the school committee members, the superintendent, and some other folks from his leadership team. And we went out and visited some of these programs at other schools. And I think that I was very impressed by it. He was very impressed by it. I also worked with the library program at Simmons College to look at what the job description should look like. And we got those positions posted and got the positions brought back into to the middle schools.
Part of a school committee person's job is negotiating with the rank and file, and I know that you worked with the administrators and teachers union regarding the educator evaluation system.
I did, and this is one of the reasons why my experience was so valuable. Not only was I using the educator evaluation system, which is a state mandated system, I was using it to evaluate teachers who were working for me in the Boston Public Schools, but I also had to use it for my own evaluation with my supervisor in the Boston Public Schools. So I was very familiar with it. Boston was a year ahead of Quincy in the implementation of it, so we had already been through it, which was really helpful. Mm-hmm. And so when I got to the table, I mean, people had a lot of questions and concerns about it, but I really was able to allay some of their fears, especially the QEA, the Quincy Education Association, the union, because I had seen it and I had seen what it could do and what it would do. And the system is built to be able to evaluate or support teachers who need it. And that's what we focused on.
You mentioned something about the technical programs and the new Quincy High School, and you did not talk about the support that you gave North Quincy High School in trying to help them with their technical programs.
Right. Some of the programs some of the students don't want to go across the city to school, and some of the programs at Quincy High School were oversubscribed anyway, and they had a waiting list. So we were able to, through the Department of Education, get programs approved at North Quincy High School as Chapter 74, and I'll explain why that's important in a minute. But North Quincy has several now that are approved: the Nursing Assistant Program, the CAD program, the carpentry program. I'm not sure if that's approved or not. It might be. And the early childhood program is approved. What's important about Chapter 74 approval is there are outcomes that you have to really work towards. The program has to be robust, and the students have to be getting outcomes like credentialing. But what's really important is the district gets more money for those programs too, because the programs are more costly to run than a regular classroom, and so the district gets more money in Chapter 70 funds for those programs.
Okay. Lego robotics.
Lego robotics.
You were the champion of that.
I was. It wasn't just me, it was the robotics team.
Okay.
The hyper robotics team. So the hyper robotics team was in place a few years before I became the director at Quincy, and it certainly was one of my favorite things to do. And I worked with that team, which is made up of students from both high schools. From across the city, they get together and they have a year-long season, but their competition season starts in January and runs through, they have to ship their robot by February vacation, and then the actual competition is later. And we wanted to make sure that we were recruiting kids at an earlier age who would get on that team. So we started Lego robotics in the middle schools in the city, and we also started running the regional competition in the city, and it was really all of the hyper robotics teachers, alumni, and members from the two high schools who really ran it. I just championed it for them. They took, once I got it started, they did everything themselves. An incredible group of people.
And you're chair of the Mass Board of Education Advisory Council for the Career and Technical Education.
Yes, 9 years ago, the Commissioner of Education asked me to be on that committee, and the membership of the committee voted me in as a co-chair. It was really important to the commissioner that there be somebody from a comprehensive or a city school on it, because the vocational schools, as you know, there are 38 regional vocational schools, but there are many, many communities like Quincy, Weymouth, Somerville, Medford, Newton, Plymouth that run career and technical education programs right in their comprehensive high schools. And so the commissioner wanted to make sure that somebody from comprehensive high schools was on that board so that we could make sure the voice was heard and things weren't skewed for the regional schools. So for the past 9 years, I was only supposed to be on for 8, but because there are no more, the boards are not being populated, you get stuck staying on them because of the governor is holding off on reappointing the board. So I've been chairing that, co-chairing that for 9 years, and we look at a lot of stuff. Last year we actually changed some regulations which are going to be beneficial for Quincy and other places, but one of the biggest ones was if a student said they wanted to take a program that wasn't offered at Quincy, we would have to pay for them to go to a school and explore it.
Right.
Well, because we have an exploratory program at our high school, and because an exploratory year is for students to figure out what they like and what they might want to do, we had the regulations change and said we're not going to send somebody to Blue Hills to explore when we have viable options for them in Quincy. If they don't see something they like here and they want to go there for something we don't have, then we'll let them go. But that was a big deal for the comprehensive schools because they were losing a lot of money. Quincy wasn't, because Quincy has a lot of very strong, robust technical programs. But the option was still there. We did lose a little bit of money with kids going out of district, and so we got that regulation changed.
That's awesome. That's terrific. Anything to save money.
Absolutely.
Question that people are going to ask. People have asked me, what made you enter the school committee race at this particular time?
Well, I won't say, because it was going to be the shortest campaign in the history of the world, 3.5 weeks. That certainly wasn't the reason. But I will tell you why. You know, every moment that I spent on the school committee I loved. I really did love it. I loved the work. I thought that I brought a lot to the table. I loved working with my colleagues. You know, there's a mix of people on that committee, and I really liked it. And I lost the election last time, so I wasn't on the school committee. And this time, early last year, Mr. Santoro put his hat in the ring and said he was going to run for the school committee. Frank and I have very similar backgrounds. We've both been educators, we've both been building leaders, we've both been on the school committee before, so we both brought the same thing to the table. And it didn't really seem to me that there was a reason for me to run at that point in time. He was a viable, experienced candidate, and I was going to be bringing the exact same experiences to the table. So when Frank pulled, there wasn't enough time for me to get on the ballot, unfortunately.
Well, he withdrew after anybody else could pull papers.
Right. So and at that time, not only was I really, really, really thinking about it, but I had lots of parents, teachers, and elected officials come to me and say, we really need you to try to do this. We really need you back on the school committee. This is an important time, a lot of issues, and we really need somebody with that kind of experience on the school committee.
People have to understand that and I didn't understand this either when I went on, that it's just not Wednesdays every other week that the school committee is all about. There's so much more involved in terms of subcommittee meetings and readings and stuff that you have to research. And people like yourself who have the experience certainly.
Yeah, you're right. The reading is incredible, especially this time of year, because all the program improvement plans and the school improvement plans are out, and you have to be able to really analyze the data that the administrators are giving you and give them the right kind of questions back. People are being evaluated along their program improvement plans and their school improvement plans, so it's really important that we get it right. But the reading is unbelievable, and not only the reading, but the analysis of what you're reading too. So you really have to know the buzzwords. You know, and you have to be able to really delve into that stuff and know what they're talking about. There's a lot of acronyms that are coming out of the Department of Education, and if you don't know what that what they mean and how they're actually implemented, it's problematic. But the Wednesday meetings are nothing compared to the work that's really done in the school committee. Nothing.
And experience obviously matters.
I think so. I think everybody brings something to the school committee, but it's nice to have Barbara on there because she has a legal background. It's really, really helpful. Kathy has an early childhood background,
Right.
and you have been a lot of athletics, which is a big part of the schools. It really is. It's like I said before, some kids can't find something that grabs them. Athletics grabs lots of kids and keeps them in school. So people bring in your education too, but people bring different things to the school committee, and it's really important that they have had some experience with those things so that they can understand and work collaboratively with each other in getting the work done.
Right, this is just, the school committee is just not a place where you toss your hat in the ring and you show up every other Wednesday and you're on the school committee. Or it's not a place where you're going to use the committee as a place to step up and go somewhere else. I think the people we have on our committee, yourself included when you were there, they're committed to being on that school committee because the best interests of the parents and the students in this city are tantamount.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, the school committee should not be seen as a stepping stone. I mean, certainly there are a lot of people who have moved through the school committee and gotten involved in politics and realized that they had other things that they wanted to contribute, but that's never been my case. I don't want to be a city councilor. I don't want to be the mayor. I really love working with the schools. It's what my life has been about. It's what I love to do, and I think that right now I'm on the top of my game. I recently retired from Boston. However, I've been working back with them as a consultant because they still have issues around career and technical education that they're trying to straighten out. But I am in the middle of it right now, so I really know what's going on, the demands from the state and from the federal government. I've lived with it. I'm at the top of my game, and I think that this is a good time for me to be on the school committee.
Well, I feel I'm at the top of my game also, and I'm older than you. So, again, with the experience that we bring to the committee, I think it's incredibly important to the parents and children of this city. It's a very important time in education currently, and it's critical that we have experienced people on that committee. Again, people don't pay as much attention to the school committee. So I don't have any kids in school, so why should I vote for the school committee? So, but let's be honest. The biggest part of your tax dollar goes to the school system. It's nearing $100 million this current school year. That's a lot of money to be assessed and looked at critically as to how we're going to spend it. And I think the people who are experienced, who have knowledge, and who are mature, like yourself, are people who would be best on the committee.
Yeah, we have a lot of responsibility on the committee, a lot of responsibility to make sure that our kids are safe, that they're being educated properly, and that we have the resources needed to do it. But it's a lot of responsibility. It really is a lot of responsibility. And I think it's, I can see it again now because, as I said, I have 4 grandchildren in the system. And just being out at their hockey games and their soccer games and the baseball games, the t-ball games, seeing them in the community, this is so important. It is so important because I think the city goes the way the school system goes. I know that it's a huge part of our assessment, but if our schools are not in play, our property values are not going to stay where they are.
That's correct.
And we're going to lose value in our homes. We need to make sure. So I agree. I've spoken to a lot of people who said, oh, I don't have any kids in the system. I don't pay much attention to the school committee. Well, you should, because the school committee really does sort of set the, people look at the schools before they buy homes. My children are looking at the schools before they buy homes in the city. So it's important that our schools are doing the job that we want them to do and our kids are getting the education that they need.
Well, we're going to wrap it up. Emily, anything else that you want to add before we close the program?
I just want to thank you, Paul, really for giving me this opportunity to speak to you and to speak to the community about why I'm doing it. It's going to be a long haul, but I think it's got some juice going right now, some buzz going. So I'm hoping that we can keep it up. Thank you very much for everything you've done.
Well, like I said before, I enjoyed working with you on the committee. I'd love to have you back with us. You bring a lot to the table, your experience primarily, and you're a good person.
Thank you.
I've known Emily for a long time, and I can't say enough good things about her. It would take another half an hour on the show. EmilyLebo is a writing candidate for school committee this November 3rd. Pay attention to when you go in the voting booth. You're not going to see her name there, but you need to write her name in and fill in the circle. Emily, thanks again for coming, and
Thank you.
good luck.
Thank you, Paul.